Fire her before the guests see what kind of trash we keep near my kitchen, Vivian Whitfield said. Her voice sliced through the back gate like glass. Marlene Price snatched the food box from Aaliyah Carter's trembling hands and threw it onto the wet concrete. Rice scattered under gold heels and polished shoes. A security guard laughed. Two guests lifted their phones and began recording. Aaliyah clutched a small pharmacy bag to her chest. Inside were Ruth Carter's kidney pills, bought with the last money from a week of night shifts. "That was my dinner, ma'am," Aaliyah whispered. "Not yours. Mine." Beside the gate, the blind beggar bent down, searching for the fallen food with wet fingers. His old leather bracelet slipped from his sleeve. Vivian saw the bronze plate. She saw the raised letters. Evu. Her face changed before she could stop it. For 1 second, the most powerful woman at the Whitfield mansion looked afraid of a blind man in torn shoes. Then her mouth tightened. "Take that bracelet from him." The back gate went silent. Not peaceful silent, cruel silent. The kind of silence that comes when poor people are being crushed and rich people are waiting to see how far the shame will go. Aaliyah stood in her faded black Maid uniform, the collar damp from the rain, one sleeve burned by kitchen steam, both hands shaking around the pharmacy bag. Behind her, the mansion glowed with chandeliers, white roses, glass tables, and a silver banner that read, "Vision for the Forgotten." Inside, donors were drinking champagne for the blind. Outside, a blind old man was kneeling beside spilled rice. "Please," Aaliyah said, keeping her voice low. "He has not eaten since yesterday." Vivian turned slowly. She wore a cream gown, pearl earrings, and the calm face of a woman used to being obeyed. "You are a maid. You do not decide who eats from this house." "It came from my plate," Aaliyah said. "I saved it after my shift." Marlene cut her off. "Your plate exists because this family allows you near the kitchen." A few workers lowered their eyes. They knew Aaliyah was telling the truth. They had seen her skip dinner. They had seen her wrap half a biscuit in a napkin and hide it in her pocket. But nobody spoke. Jobs were fragile in that house. One wrong word could turn a paycheck into an empty bus ride home. A little boy in a navy suit pointed at the ruined food box. "She was eating that earlier," he said. "I saw her." His mother gripped his shoulder hard. "Quiet." That tiny truth rose for one breath, then died under money. Vivian smiled without warmth. Children repeat what servants teach them. Aaliyah's eyes filled, but she did not fall apart. She looked at Ezekiel Whitfield, the old man sitting against the stone wall. His gray beard was wet. His cloudy eyes stared at nothing. His fingers still touched the leather bracelet, as if that small thing was the only piece of himself the world had not stolen. "Sir," Aaliyah whispered, "do not move too fast. Your knees are swollen." Vivian heard the gentleness and hated it. "Listen to her," she said to the crowd. A thief with a nurse's voice. Laughter moved through the workers. Not loud. Worse than loud. Small. Safe. Cowardly. Aaliyah swallowed. "I did not steal. I only fed someone hungry." "Then sign this," Marlene said, pulling a folded paper from a clipboard. "Admit you removed food from the estate without permission. Admit you endangered the Whitfield reputation. Admit the beggar is part of your scheme." Aaliyah stared at the paper. The word theft sat in the middle like a stain. If she signed, Marlene had promised half a month's pay. Half a month could keep Ruth's pills coming. Half a month could keep the clinic from turning her mother away. But the lie would bury the old man deeper than hunger already had. "I need my job," Aaliyah said, almost to herself. "My mother needs medicine." Vivian stepped closer. "Then choose wisely." Rain ticked against the metal trash bins. A guest whispered, "This is embarrassing." Another said, "Why is the staff always dramatic?" Aaliyah looked at the pen, then at Ezekiel, then at the pharmacy bag pressed to her heart. Her voice shook, but it did not break. "I will scrub your floors. I will wash every plate. I will work until my hands bleed. But I will not sign a lie." Marlene's face hardened. She slapped the pen from Aaliyah's fingers. "Then leave." The word hit harder than a hand. Leave meant no wages. Leave meant no medicine. Leave meant Ruth waiting in a dim apartment, pretending not to be in pain. Aaliyah opened her mouth, but Vivian raised one finger. "Do not beg at my gate." You and your blind friend can share the gutter. Ezekiel lifted his head. His voice was weak but strange. Deep. Educated. Feed the last person first, he murmured. Vivian froze. Across the driveway, a black luxury SUV rolled to a stop. The rear window lowered halfway. Darius Whitfield sat inside, silent, his eyes fixed not on Aaliyah, not on the spilled rice, but on the old bracelet in Ezekiel's hand. Marlene reached down to snatch it. Darius opened the door and said one word. Stop. Darius Whitfield's single word froze the back gate. Marlene's hand stopped inches above the old leather bracelet. The rain kept falling. The phone stayed raised. But the laughter died. When Darius stepped out of the black SUV, even the guard straightened. His suit was dark. His shoes were clean. His watch could have paid Aaliyah Carter's rent for years. He looked at the spilled rice first, then at Aaliyah's soaked uniform, then at the blind old man clutching the bracelet like it was the last proof that he had once belonged somewhere. Who told you to touch him? Darius asked. Marlene swallowed. Mr. Whitfield, we were handling a staff issue. Vivian moved fast. She stepped between Darius and the old man, wearing a smile too smooth to be honest. A dirty one, she said. This maid has been stealing from the estate and feeding vagrants at our gate. Aaliyah lowered her eyes. The word stealing bent her shoulders, but did not make her lie. She held the small pharmacy bag tighter. Rain softened the cheap paper label on Ruth Carter's kidney pills. Darius saw it. Vivian saw him see it. She is dramatic, Vivian added. Her kind always brings a sad little story. Aaliyah flinched, not because the insult was new, because it was spoken in front of people who would believe it. Behind Darius, the mansion doors opened. Warm music floated out. Glasses touched. Donors laughed beneath chandeliers. Inside, rich people were paying to be seen, caring about the forgotten. Outside, a hungry blind man had rice on his fingers, and a maid was being shamed for giving away her own dinner. Was it estate food? Darius asked. Aaliyah looked up slowly. His voice was not gentle, but it was not cruel either. That almost broke her. It was my portion, sir. Vivian cut in. Everything served on this property belongs to this family. Darius did not look at her. I asked her. The gate tightened again. Aaliyah breathed once. I work the late kitchen shift. Sometimes I save my plate for him. Some nights he is shaking. Some nights he forgets where he is. I cannot leave him hungry. A guest whispered. She sounds rehearsed. Another lifted his phone higher. Aaliyah stared at the ground. Medicine, Darius said, pointing at the bag. For my mother. Why carry it out here? Because if I leave it in the staff room, someone may throw it away. The answer landed harder than she meant it to. A young dishwasher near the wall shifted like he wanted to speak. Marlene turned her head once. He became silent. Tiny hope rose. Money crushed it. Vivian gave a soft laugh. You hear that? Now she accuses the staff. She feeds strangers, insults workers, and performs innocence in front of guests. The blind old man turned his face toward Darius's voice. His cloudy eyes found nothing, but his fingers tightened around the bracelet. That voice, he murmured. Vivian's smile vanished for half a second. Darius heard it. What did you say? The old man lowered his head, as if memory itself had frightened him. Vivian snapped. He is confused. Street people ramble. Aaliyah spoke before fear could stop her. He is not confused when he is hungry. The words were small. They still cut through the gate. If you're watching this and you have ever seen a poor person accused for doing the right thing, comment where you're watching from and tell me who you believe right now, because this gate is not only testing Aaliyah's job, it is testing her soul. Darius crouched slightly, not touching the old man, only studying the bracelet. The bronze plate was scratched. The raised letters were worn down by years of fingers. Evu, diusis yaf tightened. He said nothing. Vivian moved at once. Enough. The gala is starting. Remove the maid. Remove the beggar. Delete those recordings. This family will not be embarrassed by kitchen drama. Aaliyah's face drained. Please, ma'am. I need tonight's pay. The clinic opens early. Then you should have chosen your position over gutter charity. 2 guards stepped toward her. Aaliyah reached for the old man, but Marlene blocked her with the clipboard. Do not touch him. You are dismissed. Darius raised one hand. The guard stopped, but only halfway. His eyes stayed on Aaliyah. Your name? She hesitated. Poor people learned not to give rich people anything they could use against them. Aaliyah Carter, sir. Behind her, the old man whispered one word. Whitfield. Vivian went pale. This time Darius saw it clearly. He turned toward the old man. How do you know that name? The old man opened his wet fingers around the bracelet. Under the letters EW, one line of raised braille showed through the mud. Darius leaned closer. Then Vivian reached for the bracelet herself. Vivian's hand reached for the bracelet, but Darius's voice stopped her again. Leave it. The word was quiet, yet it carried more power than Marlene's clipboard, the guard's boots, and every phone pointed at Aaliyah Carter's wet face. Vivian froze with her fingers hanging over the blind old man's wrist. Then she pulled her hand back and smiled too carefully. Darius, this is not your concern tonight. That man has been sleeping outside our gate. We have guests. Darius did not smile, and yet you knew to reach for what he was wearing. For 1 second, the rain sounded louder than the gala music. Aaliyah looked from Darius to Vivian, confused and afraid. She did not know what the bracelet meant. She only knew her dinner was on the ground, her job was gone, and her mother's medicine was getting wet in her hand. Sir, she said, I do not want trouble. I just need my pay. Vivian turned on her fast. You lost the right to ask for anything. Marlene pushed the confession paper toward her again. Sign it, or leave with nothing. Aaliyah stared at the word theft. Half a month's pay could buy Ruth Carter's pills. Half a month could keep the clinic from refusing her mother. Half a month could keep the landlord from taping another warning to their door. But if she signed, the old blind man would become part of a lie. A beggar. A scheme. A dirty excuse. Aaliyah closed her fingers around the pharmacy bag and whispered, My mother raised me poor, not false. Marlene's eyes hardened. Then walk. The side gate opened. Aaliyah stepped through it with her old tote bag, her wet shoes, and the kind of shame that follows a poor woman even when she has done nothing wrong. Behind her, Ezekiel called weakly, Child. She turned. Vivian snapped, Do not answer him. Aaliyah did not disobey out loud. She only pressed 2 fingers to her heart so the old man would know she had heard. Darius saw that small gesture. He also saw Vivian's fear return when Ezekiel covered the bracelet with both hands. Pull the last 30 nights of back gate footage, Darius said to his driver. Quietly. Vivian's head turned. What? Darius looked at the spilled rice. Because someone here is lying. That tiny sentence followed Aaliyah all the way to the bus stop. It did not save her. It did not pay her. It did not wipe the rice from her shoes. But it kept one small light alive in her chest. Then her phone buzzed. The clinic. She answered with wet fingers. Miss Carter, the receptionist said, tired and flat, Your mother's refill cannot be released without payment by morning. Aaliyah closed her eyes. Please, I was supposed to be paid tonight. I'm sorry. The system will not hold it again. The line ended. Hope ended with it. By the time Aaliyah reached her apartment, the hallway smelled of old cooking oil and damp carpet. A yellow notice was taped to her door. Final warning. Ruth Carter sat inside under a thin blanket, pretending not to shake. Her breathing sounded rough, like every breath had a bill attached to it. Baby, Ruth said, seeing the wet uniform. What happened? Aaliyah tried to smile. It failed. She placed the pharmacy bag on the table. 1 bottle rolled out. Not enough. I lost the job. Ruth's face changed, but she did not scold her. For what? For feeding the old blind man by the Whitfield gate. Ruth went still. Aaliyah noticed. Mama. Ruth gripped the blanket. What old man? His name is Ezekiel. I think. He never says much. But tonight he said Whitfield. Ruth's lips parted. The room felt smaller. Rain tapped the cracked window. Ruth whispered, Ezekiel Whitfield? Aaliyah stared at her. You know that name? Ruth reached under the mattress with shaking fingers and pulled out an old metal pill tin. Inside was a folded hospital paper, yellow at the edges. On it were 3 words written in Ruth's careful handwriting. Do not let Vivian sign. Aaliyah felt the air leave her chest. Before she could ask, headlights swept across the apartment window, and a black SUV slowed down outside. The black SUV slowed outside Aaliyah Carter's apartment, and Ruth's shaking hand closed over the yellow hospital paper. Aaliyah moved to the window, but she did not pull the curtain all the way back. Poor women learned to look without being seen. The SUV did not honk. It did not flash lights. It just sat below the cracked window, clean and silent, like a piece of the Whitfield mansion had followed her into the poor side of Atlanta. Ruth whispered, "Hide that paper." Aaliyah turned. "Mama, what is this?" Ruth folded it fast, but her fingers were weak. "Not now." Aaliyah saw the words again before the tin shut. "Do not let Vivian sign." Her chest tightened. At the curb, the rear door opened. Darius Whitfield stepped out, alone except for his driver. No guards, no camera, no rich guests. Just a billionaire in a dark suit standing under a broken streetlight while rain ran across the hood of his car. He looked up at the apartment window as if he already knew which room was hers. Aaliyah stepped back. "He found us." Ruth struggled to sit higher. "Then listen more than you speak." A soft knock came at the door. Not loud, not demanding. Somehow that made it worse. Aaliyah opened it only a few inches. Darius stood in the hallway, where the paint was peeling and the air smelled of damp carpet. His eyes moved once to the final warning notice on the door, then to the pharmacy bag on the table behind her. He did not mention either one. "Miss Carter," he said, "I need to ask you about the man at my gate." Aaliyah held the door tighter. "I already lost my job for answering questions. I'm not here to take more from you." That is what rich people say before papers appear. The line landed between them. Darius accepted it. He nodded once. Then no papers. Ruth coughed from inside. The sound was deep and tired. Darius looked past Aaliyah, but he did not push the door. "Mrs. Carter?" Ruth went still. "Who told you my name?" "The medicine label." Aaliyah stepped in front of the table. "Please do not look around our home like it is evidence." Darius lowered his eyes. For the first time that night, he looked less like a man used to being obeyed and more like a man standing too close to something painful. "Fair." Then he reached into his coat and took out his phone. On the screen was the back gate camera. Aaliyah saw herself in the rain, saw the spilled rice, saw Ezekiel's hand. The image froze on the bracelet. "What did he say before my stepmother reached for this?" Darius asked. Aaliyah's voice dropped. "He said Whitfield." Ruth made a small sound behind her. Darius heard it. "You know that name." Ruth turned her face away. "I used to hear many names in hospitals." "Which hospital?" Ruth did not answer. Darius did not press. He only tapped the screen again. The video jumped forward, then turned black for 6 seconds. When it returned, Vivian's hand was already near the bracelet. Darius's jaw tightened. The footage is missing exactly where it matters. Aaliyah stared at the black gap. Tiny hope rose, thin and dangerous. "So you believe I did not steal?" Darius looked at her. "I believe someone wanted me not to see." The hope did not last. His phone rang. Vivian's name appeared on the screen. He let it ring once, twice, then answered. Her voice was calm enough to be poison. "Darius, the maid left with property that does not belong to her. Bring her back before this becomes a police matter." Aaliyah froze. "Property?" Vivian continued. "And tell her sick mother that old hospital stories can ruin living people." Ruth's face turned gray. Darius ended the call slowly. The hallway became colder. From downstairs, another car door slammed. Marlene Price's voice rose near the entrance. "Aaliyah Carter, open up. Mrs. Whitfield wants that paper and the girl back at the estate tonight." Marlene Price's voice climbed the stairwell before her shoes reached the landing. "Aaliyah Carter, open up." One by one, neighbors cracked their doors. Tired eyes looked out. A child stopped crying. A man in a work shirt held his lunch bag against his chest and stared. Shame did not need a mansion to become public. It could happen in a hallway with peeling paint and a broken light. Aaliyah stood beside the door, the old hospital paper burning in her hand. Ruth Carter tried to hide the metal pill tin under the blanket, but her fingers shook too badly. Darius Whitfield stepped away from the doorway, calm but alert. "Miss Price," he called down. "Why are you here?" Marlene appeared with 2 building security men behind her and Vivian Whitfield on speakerphone. Her clipboard was pressed to her chest like a weapon. Mr. Whitfield, Mrs. Whitfield sent me to recover stolen property and return a dismissed employee to the estate for questioning. Aaliyah's face went cold. I'm not property. Marlene smiled without looking at her. Then stop behaving like a problem that must be carried. A few neighbors whispered. Someone raised a phone. Ruth struggled to stand, but her knees failed. Aaliyah rushed to her. Mama, please sit. Vivian's voice came through the phone, soft and polished. Ruth Carter, I hoped age would teach you silence. Ruth's eyes filled with fear. Darius heard the fear more than the words. You know, Mrs. Carter, I know many former workers, Vivian said. Some remember things incorrectly when poor relatives need money. Aaliyah lifted her head. My mother did not ask you for money. No, Vivian said. You sent your daughter to steal a family document. Marlene pointed at the pill tin. Hand it over. The hallway tightened. Aaliyah looked down at the yellow paper. It was not money. It was not jewelry. It was not food. But suddenly it was the most dangerous thing in the room. This belongs to my mother, she said. It was written by her hand. Marlene stepped inside without permission. A maid does not decide what belongs to the Whitfields. Darius moved one step, blocking her path. Not touching, not shouting, just standing there with quiet power. Do you have a warrant? Marlene stopped. Vivian answered before she could. Darius, do not embarrass yourself defending a girl who fed a street man and ran off with evidence. Aaliyah flinched at the word evidence. Darius did not. You called it property a moment ago. Silence. Small. Sharp. Vivian recovered fast. Both can be true. Ruth coughed hard, folding over the blanket. Aaliyah dropped beside her and pressed the pharmacy bag in her lap. One bottle. Not enough. Marlene saw it and struck where it hurt. Sign a statement tonight, return the paper, and Mrs. Whitfield may still release your final wages. Aaliyah looked at her mother's thin hands. Working hands. Hands that had cleaned other people's sickness and hidden her own. And if I refuse, then theft, trespass, and harassment become police words. The neighbors pulled their doors wider. Police words scared poor buildings. Police words made people step back before they knew the truth. An old woman across the hall, Mrs. Bell, whispered, That girl brings soup to my grandson when I work nights. Marlene turned. Ma'am, this is not your concern. Mrs. Bell lowered her eyes. Tiny hope rose. Money crushed it. Aaliyah stood slowly. Her voice trembled, but her back straightened. I will not sign another lie. Marlene's smile vanished. She reached for the paper. Aaliyah pulled it back, but Ruth cried, No, baby. They will ruin your future. Aaliyah looked at her mother. Then let my future start with the truth. Darius watched her, and something in his face changed. Not rescue. Not love. Respect. Marlene turned to leave, but anger made her careless. Mrs. Whitfield was right. That old caregiver note should have been destroyed with the missing intake page. Darius's eyes narrowed. What intake page? Marlene froze. Vivian's voice snapped through the phone. Marlene. Too late. Darius's phone buzzed in his hand. A message from his driver appeared on the screen. Backgate backup found. 6 deleted seconds restored. The old man says your name. Darius read the message twice, but his face did not move. Backgate backup found. 6 deleted seconds restored. The old man says your name. Marlene saw his eyes change and tried to step backward, but the hallway was too narrow and every neighbor was watching. Vivian's voice still burned from a phone in her hand. Marlene, leave now. Darius lifted his head. Do not move. The words were calm, but Marlene stopped like a lock had closed around her ankles. Aaliyah Carter stood beside Ruth's thin blanket, still holding the yellow hospital paper. She did not understand the power of restored footage. She only understood that rich people had followed her home, called her a thief twice, and now wanted the only paper that made her mother afraid. Sir, she said, please do not play my shame in this hallway. Darius looked at her. This is not your shame. Marlene laughed too fast. Mr. Whitfield, a poor girl with a sick mother, can act innocent very well. Aaliyah looked down, but she did not release the paper. Darius turned his phone toward the wall and opened the restored video. The grainy image shook, then the back gate appeared. Zen. Spilled rice. Aaliyah kneeling to gather food before anyone stepped on it. Ezekiel's hand gripping the leather bracelet. Vivian's cream gown entering the frame too quickly. Then the missing 6 seconds began. Ezekiel lifted his face toward Darius's SUV and whispered, "Darius, feed the last person first." The hallway went still. Ruth covered her mouth. Aaliyah froze. Darius did not blink. Marlene whispered, "That proves nothing." But her voice had lost its teeth. Darius zoomed in. The camera caught Vivian's hand reaching not for Aaliyah, not for the food, but for the bracelet. The bronze plate flashed under the gate light. Evu. Under it, a muddy line of raised braille appeared. The same words. Feed the last person first. Darius's thumb stayed on the screen. Why would a blind beggar at my gate know my childhood lesson? No one answered. This was the first real crack in the mansion wall. Not enough to free Aaliyah. Not enough to expose Vivian. But enough to make every lie in that hallway feel unsafe. If you're watching this, comment what you think that bracelet means, because Vivian is not afraid of stolen food. She is afraid of a sentence only the Whitfield family should know. The tiny hope lasted 3 seconds. Then Vivian's voice cut through the phone again. That man could have heard anything. Darius, do not let a servant and her mother turn grief into theater. Ruth's face twisted with pain. I never wanted this, she whispered. Darius looked at the yellow paper in Aaliyah's hand. Mrs. Carter, what is the intake page Marlene mentioned? Ruth's eyes filled. A page that should have stayed in a hospital file. Which hospital? Mercy South. Private wing. Years ago. Marlene snapped. She is lying. Ruth raised her tired eyes. Then why did Vivian send you for my note? That sentence hit the hallway like dropped glass. Marlene's mouth opened, then closed. Darius saw it. Aaliyah saw it too. But Marlene recovered and pointed at Aaliyah. If she does not return to the estate tonight, the accusation becomes formal. Aaliyah held Ruth's blanket. I will not leave my mother. Then your mother loses the refill, Marlene said. Whitfield Charity pays that clinic's emergency fund. The cruelty was quiet, legal, polished. Ruth began to shake harder. Aaliyah looked at Darius, not begging for rescue, only begging him to understand the trap. He did, but he still had only pieces. A restored clip, a bracelet, a nurse's note, a missing intake page. Not enough for public truth. Not yet. He turned to his driver. Send someone to Mercy South. Ask for Samuel Hayes. Quietly. Then he faced Marlene. Nobody takes Mrs. Carter's paper. Vivian's voice sharpened. Darius. He ended the call. For one breath, power shifted. Then another message arrived from the estate. The blind man is gone. Security says Vivian moved him through the service gate. Aaliyah read the fear on Darius's face before he hit it. She grabbed her wet coat. Ezekiel is alone. Darius blocked the doorway, only halfway. Aaliyah, wait. But she was already moving past Marlene, past the neighbors, past the final warning notice on her door. He fed my hope when nobody believed me, she said. Tonight, I feed him again. He fed my hope when nobody believed me, Aaliyah said. Tonight, I feed him again. She moved past Marlene Price before fear could catch her. The hallway watched in silence as the poor maid with wet shoes, a sick mother, and a final warning on her door ran toward the stairs. Darius Whitfield followed, but he did not grab her. He only said, my car is faster. Aaliyah stopped halfway down. Pride fought panic in her chest. I'm not getting into a rich man's car, so your family can say I was bought. Darius held her eyes. Then sit in the back with my driver. I will sit in front. That small respect confused her more than cruelty ever had. Downstairs, the black SUV waited under the rain. Its leather seats looked too clean for her soaked uniform. Aaliyah climbed in carefully, still holding the pharmacy bag like it mattered, even though the medicine inside was not enough. Darius sat in the front passenger seat without another word. Atlanta passed in streaks of gold and gray. Tall glass offices, closed stores, men sleeping under bus shelters. Aaliyah looked out the window and whispered, he hates loud engines. They make him think someone is coming to chase him. Darius turned slightly. How do you know that? Because I listened. The answer made him quiet. At the Whitfield estate, the gala lights still burned. Music still played. Rich laughter still floated above the driveway. But the back gate looked empty, washed clean, as if the shame had never happened. Aaliyah ran to the service path. A guard stepped in front of her. Dismissed staff cannot enter. Darius's voice came from behind her. Move. The guard moved. Not because Aaliyah had rights in that house. Because Darius did. That truth hurt her and helped her at the same time. Near the old delivery shed, they found Ezekiel sitting on a folded tarp beside a trash bin, shivering without his food box. His bracelet was still on his wrist, hidden beneath both hands. Aaliyah dropped to her knees. Sir, I am here. Ezekiel lifted his face toward her voice. Child, you should not have come back. You were hungry. You lost your work because of me. No, she said softly. I lost it because I would not lie. Darius stopped a few feet away. He did not interrupt. He watched Aaliyah tear a dry bread roll in half and place it in Ezekiel's palm like it was not leftover food but dignity. She warned him where the cup was. She wiped rain from his sleeve with the edge of her own uniform. A woman who had nothing was still careful not to make him feel small. Darius looked away once, as if the kindness was too heavy to stare at. Ezekiel touched the bread, then paused. Did the young man come? Aaliyah glanced at Darius. Yes. Darius stepped closer. Why did you say my name? Ezekiel's fingers tightened over the bracelet. His cloudy eyes lifted but found no face. Some names live in the bones after the mind is tired. Darius swallowed. Who gave you that bracelet? Vivian's voice cut through the service path before Ezekiel could answer. This is touching, Darius. A fired maid, a confused beggar, and your guilt standing in the rain. She walked toward them with two board members behind her, both embarrassed and curious. Aaliyah rose halfway, but Darius lifted one hand, stopping the guard from stepping closer. Vivian saw it. Her smile sharpened. You are protecting her now? Aaliyah spoke first. He is protecting the truth. Vivian laughed. Truth? From a girl who steals bread and a man who cannot even see his own hands. Ezekiel flinched. Aaliyah turned back to him. Do not listen. Darius removed his coat and placed it over Ezekiel's shoulders, but only after Aaliyah nodded that it was all right. That small permission made Vivian's face darken. Darius said, No one moves him again without my approval. Aaliyah looked at him, still afraid, still not trusting, but for the first time she breathed without feeling alone. Then Ezekiel reached for her hand and whispered, I had a son once. They told him I died before he could open the door. Darius went still. Before anyone could speak, his phone rang. The caller ID read Samuel Hayes. Darius answered. An old man's voice shook through the speaker. Darius, I know what happened at Mercy South that night, and if Vivian knows I called you, I may disappear before morning. Samuel Hayes's voice shook through the speaker, and the service path went quiet. Even the gala music felt far away. Darius Whitfield held the phone close. Where are you? He asked. Not where Vivian thinks, Samuel said, and not safe enough to speak long. Aaliyah Carter stayed beside Ezekiel, one hand holding the paper cup so he would not spill it. She did not understand why an old lawyer sounded afraid of a woman in pearls, but she understood fear. She had heard it in Ruth's breath. She had seen it in Vivian's eyes when the bracelet appeared. Darius lowered the speaker, but Samuel's next words still cut through the rain. Mercy South had 2 intake records that night, one for a blind injured man, one for a private transfer signed before sunrise. Darius went still. Transferred where? That is the page missing from the file. Vivian stepped closer. Her smile was gone. Darius, in that call. He did not look at her. Speak, Samuel. Ezekiel's hand trembled around the bread. Aaliyah placed her palm near his, not forcing comfort, only offering it. His fingers found hers like a man holding the edge of a bridge. The man kept repeating one sentence, Samuel said. Feed the last person first. Ruth Carter wrote it down because the doctors thought it was nonsense. Ruth's name struck Aaliyah hard. My mother told the truth, she whispered. Vivian snapped. Your mother was a night nurse, not a witness. Aaliyah lifted her eyes. Then why did you send people for her note? The board members behind Vivian shifted. One looked at the bracelet. One looked away. Tiny Hope moved through the service path, soft and dangerous. Darius stepped closer to Ezekiel, but still did not touch him. Samuel, did you see the man's face? The line crackled. Only once. He was bandaged, disoriented, but he wore a leather bracelet with a braille plate. Evu. I told Vivian it should be logged with his belongings. She said the family would handle it. Ezekiel pressed the bracelet to his chest. Aaliyah felt him shaking. Darius's voice dropped. Why did you stay quiet? Samuel went silent so long that even Vivian stopped breathing. Then he said, because my daughter's scholarship came from the Whitfield Foundation. Because my wife was sick. Because powerful families do not only buy loyalty, they rent fear. The words hit Aaliyah harder than she expected. Poor people were not the only ones trapped. Some cages had marble floors. Vivian clapped once, slow and cold. Beautiful confession. You were frightened, so now you rewrite history by phone. No, Samuel said. I kept one thing. Darius straightened. What? A copy of Ruth's caregiver note and a photograph from the intake desk. The face is blurred, but the bracelet is clear. Vivian's calm cracked. That photograph belongs to the estate. Samuel gave a tired laugh. Then you admit it exists. Silence. Sharp. Heavy. Aaliyah looked at Darius and saw shock under his control. He was not ready to name the truth. Not yet, but something old was opening inside him. Ezekiel turned his blind face toward the phone. Lawyer, he murmured. Did the boy wait by the door? Darius stopped breathing. Samuel whispered, yes. A child waited outside the private wing all night. Vivian told him the man inside died before morning. Darius's hand lowered, as if the phone had become too heavy. Aaliyah saw pain cross his face, real and unguarded. She did not know the whole story, but she knew a wound when it opened. Sir, she said softly, sit down. Vivian stepped between them like a blade. Enough. This is emotional manipulation by staff, beggars, and old men who want money. Aaliyah rose slowly. He asked for bread, not money. The line crackled again. Samuel spoke faster now. Darius, listen carefully. The missing intake page has one signature that matters. The person who moved him was not a doctor. Vivian's phone lit up in her hand. A message from Marlene flashed across the screen. The maid still has Ruth's note. Samuel is talking. Vivian looked at Aaliyah, cold and final. Samuel's last words came through like a warning from a locked room. Whoever signed that transfer is still inside your mansion, close enough to stop the truth before morning. Samuel Hayes's warning hung over the service path like a storm about to break. Whoever signed that transfer is still inside your mansion, close enough to stop the truth before morning. Vivian Whitfield looked at Aaliyah Carter as if the poor maid had become the crack in every wall she built. Then she smiled. Not kindly, not calmly. A trap smile. Since everyone wants truth tonight, Vivian said, let us bring it where truth belongs. In front of witnesses. Aaliyah felt Ezekiel's hand tighten around hers. No, she whispered. This is not for your guests. Vivian stepped closer. You should have thought of that before dragging my family name through the rain. Darius Whitfield stood between them, phone still in his hand. Vivian, be careful. I am being careful, she said. Careful with my family. Two guards appeared near the service path. Marlene Price stood behind them, holding Aaliyah's old tote bag. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. That is mine. Marlene lifted it like dirty laundry. Found near the delivery shed. Aaliyah reached for it, but one guard blocked her. Open it, Vivian ordered. Marlene unzipped the tote. Out fell Ruth's spare pill bottle, a torn bus pass, a folded napkin, and a gold watch with the Whitfield crest on the back. Aaliyah stared at it. That is not mine. One board member leaned in. That looks like an archive piece. Vivian turned fast. A family collectible, missing from a locked room. Aaliyah shook her head. I have never seen it. Marlene's voice became smooth. First food, then papers, now family property. Aaliyah looked at Darius. She hated that her truth still sounded small beside their money. Sir, I did not take that. Darius looked at the watch. then at Marlene's gloved hand on the tote. Who searched the bag before you found it? Marlene blinked. Security protocol. That was not my question. Tiny hope moved across Aaliyah's face. For 1 second, even one board member looked unsure. Vivian killed that doubt with a single clap. Enough. Darius, grief is making you blind. This woman fed a confused beggar until he repeated names she wanted to hear. Her sick mother holds an old note. Her bag holds our property. How much more must this family endure? Aaliyah's eyes filled, but she did not bend. My mother needs medicine. That is true, but I will not steal to buy it. Vivian leaned in. Poor honesty is always loudest when it is caught. Ezekiel flinched. Aaliyah turned to him first. Do not listen to her. That small kindness made Vivian's face harden. Take the maid to the East Hall. The gala committee should hear this before the donors leave. Darius stepped forward. No one touches Ezekiel. Vivian's eyes flashed at the name, but she recovered. Fine. Let the maid explain herself alone. The guards opened a path toward the mansion. Aaliyah walked because refusing would make her look guilty. She passed the kitchen door where she had worked hungry. She passed silver trays stacked with untouched food. She passed women in silk who stared at her wet uniform. Phones rose again. Whispers followed. Thief. Scammer. Trouble. In the East Hall, Vivian placed Aaliyah near the side of the stage beneath the glowing banner, Vision for the Forgotten. The cruelty was perfect. Aaliyah stood under words about mercy while being treated like a stain. Darius stayed at the back, silent, watching Marlene's hands more than a watch. The little boy in the navy suit appeared near a column. He looked at Aaliyah's tote and whispered, That lady put something in it. His mother pulled him back. Not now. Tiny hope. Crushed again. Vivian took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, before we continue our charity program, we must address a painful betrayal inside our own home. Aaliyah closed her eyes. Ruth's medicine, Ezekiel's bread, the bracelet, the note. Everything she had protected was being turned against her. Then Darius's phone lit up. Samuel Hayes is at the front entrance. He has the Mercy South photograph and the missing page copy. Darius looked toward the grand doors just as they began to open. The grand doors opened slowly, and Samuel Hayes stepped into the East Hall with rain on his coat and a sealed brown envelope pressed against his chest. The gala lights struck his tired face. Every donor turned. Every phone shifted. Vivian Whitfield still held the microphone, but for the first time that night, her smile had to work hard to stay alive. Darius Whitfield looked at the envelope, then at Samuel. He did not rush. He did not shout. He only walked down the center aisle with the quiet authority of a man who had waited too many years for one missing page. Aaliyah Carter stood near the side of the stage in her wet, Maid uniform, her old tote bag at her feet, and the planted gold watch on the display table like a sentence already written against her. She wanted to disappear, but she did not lower her head. Vivian lifted the microphone again. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. Mr. Hayes is a former family attorney with a history of emotional confusion. Samuel stopped below the stage. My memory is old, Vivian. It is not dead. A wave of whispers moved through the room. Darius raised one hand. The whispers softened. Miss Carter stays where she is, he said. Nobody removes her. Vivian laughed gently, as if correcting a child. Darius, you're allowing a dismissed maid to stand before donors while stolen property lies at her feet. Aaliyah's voice came small but clear. That watch was not in my bag when I left my home. Marlene Price stood near the table, stiff and pale. Darius looked at her gloved hands, then at the tote. Then every camera angle will be checked before anyone touches it again. A board member frowned. There are cameras in the East Hall? Darius did not look away from Vivian. There are cameras everywhere in a house built on suspicion. The room went colder. Two staff members rolled a large screen toward the stage. It stayed black, unlit, waiting. Then the side door opened. Ezekiel was guided in by Darius's driver, still wrapped in Darius's coat, his cloudy eyes turned toward the sound of the crowd. Aaliyah took one step toward him, but stopped herself. She knew Vivian wanted any excuse to call her dramatic again. Darius saw the restraint. Samuel climbed the first step with effort. In his hand was the sealed envelope. In Darius's hand was Ezekiel's bracelet, wrapped in a clean white cloth. The bronze plate was visible. Evu. Beneath it, the braille line caught the chandelier light. Feed the last person first. Aaliyah saw it and felt the whole night tighten around that small object. She had fed a hungry man. Now, kindness itself was being put on trial. Vivian stepped towards Samuel. Give that envelope to me. It concerns Whitfield property. Darius blocked her without touching her. It concerns truth. Tiny hope lifted in Aaliyah's chest. Not freedom. Not yet. Just the chance to be heard before the room buried her. The little boy in the navy suit stood near a column, staring at the tote bag. His lips trembled. I saw the lady put it there, he whispered. This time, more people heard him. His mother pulled him close, terrified. Vivian turned sharply. Children should not repeat staff gossip. Aaliyah looked at the boy with wet eyes. Thank you, she whispered. If you are watching this, comment who deserves justice in this room. The maid they called a thief, the blind man they tried to hide, or the woman smiling under a charity banner while the truth stands at the door. Vivian heard the room changing and struck harder. This is how manipulation works. A poor girl cries. A confused child repeats nonsense. An old lawyer brings papers no one has verified. And suddenly my family is on trial. Darius took the microphone from the stand. He held it low, not yet speaking into it. The silence became heavy. Samuel placed the envelope on the table beside the bracelet and the watch. 3 objects. 1 lie. 1 secret. 1 witness from the past. Aaliyah pressed her hands together to stop them shaking. Sir, she said to Darius, if this makes my mother unsafe, I will leave. Darius turned to her. His face softened only enough for her to see it. Your mother became unsafe when people with power decided silence was cheaper than truth. Vivian's eyes flashed. Careful. Darius finally raised the microphone. No, you were careful. For years. The screen behind them flickered once, then glowed blue. Marlene stepped back. Samuel breathed in sharply. The donors stopped whispering. Even the waiters froze with silver trays in their hands. Darius looked at Aaliyah, then at Ezekiel, then at Vivian. Before you judge her, he said, watch this. Before you judge her, Darius said, watch this. The screen behind him brightened, and the East Hall fell into a silence so complete that 1 champagne glass sounded guilty when it touched a tray. The first video showed the back gate in the rain. Aaliyah Carter appeared in her wet Maid uniform, sitting alone on the low service step with a dinner plate on her knees. She looked around once, then divided the food in half. 1 half stayed on the plate. The other half went into a small box. No silver tray. No stolen roast. No guest food. Her own rice. Her own bread. Her own dinner. Then the footage jumped. Another night. Another box. Another quiet walk to the blind old man by the gate. Night after night, Aaliyah gave from the little she had, while the mansion behind her threw away untouched plates. Aaliyah covered her mouth with 1 trembling hand. The crowd watched her kneel beside Ezekiel and placed the box near his fingers. Her voice came through the weak gate speaker. Sir, the cup is on your left. The bread is warm tonight. Phones lowered across the room. 1 rich woman stopped whispering. Vivian stepped forward. Sentimental clips prove nothing. Darius did not look at her. Then watched the next one. The screen changed to the East Hall camera from 15 minutes earlier. Marlene Price appeared near the display table. She looked over both shoulders. Then she opened Aaliyah's old tote bag and slipped the gold Whitfield watch inside. The little boy in the navy suit gasped. I told them, he whispered. This time, his mother did not silence him. Marlene turned white. Aaliyah's knees almost failed, but she stayed standing. The room that had called her thief now had nothing to say. Darius's voice stayed calm. Miss Carter did not steal food. She did not steal the watch. She was framed. Vivian's smile shook, then came back harder. Marlene acted alone. Marlene looked at her like a drowning woman watching the boat leave. Samuel Hayes opened the sealed brown envelope. His hands trembled, but his voice carried. Then explain this. He placed an old Mercy South photograph onto the document camera. The screen showed an intake desk from years ago. The injured man's face was blurred by motion and bandages, but his wrist was clear. A worn leather bracelet, a bronze plate, Evu. Beneath it, the Braille words, "Feed the last person first." Darius lifted the same bracelet in the white cloth. The two images matched. The crowd moved as one breath. Ezekiel stood near the side aisle, wrapped in Darius's coat, his cloudy eyes turned toward the silence. Aaliyah looked at him, and for the first time she understood that the whole room was not staring at a beggar. They were staring at a buried life. Vivian snapped. Old photographs can be misread. Samuel unfolded the missing intake page copy. Then read the signature. Darius placed the paper beneath the camera. The transfer order appeared on the screen. Private relocation. No family notification. Personal authorization. Vivian Whitfield. A cold sound passed through the donors. Recognition. Samuel pointed to the bottom line. He was admitted alive. He was transferred before sunrise. The child waiting outside was told his father had died. Darius turned slowly toward Ezekiel. His voice lowered, and for one moment he was not a billionaire. He was only the boy from the hallway again. "Say it again," he whispered. Ezekiel lifted his shaking hand. "Feed the last person first." Darius stepped closer. Ezekiel reached through the air and found his wrist. His fingers paused over a small childhood scar. His face broke. "My boy." The microphone caught it. The room heard it. Aaliyah began to cry without making a sound. Darius covered Ezekiel's hand with his own. Then he faced the hall. "This man is Ezekiel Whitfield. My father." Vivian backed up one step. No one moved with her. No one protected her silence. Darius turned a missing page toward her, his voice still quiet, still controlled, more dangerous than shouting. "Now tell this room why you told a child his father was dead while his father was still breathing." Vivian Whitfield stood beneath the charity banner while the whole room waited for her answer. Darius held the missing transfer page toward her, steady as stone. "Now tell this room why you told a child his father was dead while his father was still breathing." Vivian opened her mouth, but no sound came out. For years, she had ruled rooms with silence. Now silence had turned against her. A donor lowered his phone. A board member stepped away from her side. Marlene Price stared at the floor, no longer brave enough to look at Aaliyah Carter. Vivian finally lifted her chin. "I protected this family." Darius did not move. "You buried my father." He was unstable, Vivian snapped. "Blind. Confused. A danger to the company. I made a decision adults were too weak to make." Ezekiel stood in Darius's coat, one hand over the leather bracelet on his wrist. His cloudy eyes did not see the room, but the room could see him now. Not as a beggar, not as a problem near the gate, as a man who had been erased while still breathing. Aaliyah stood near the stage, shaking, her wet uniform clinging to her arms. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She only looked at Ezekiel and whispered, "They see you now, sir." That soft sentence did what no accusation could do. It broke the last piece of Vivian's control. Samuel Hayes placed another document beneath the camera. "This is the emergency trusteeship order Vivian filed after the transfer." She claimed Ezekiel Whitfield was deceased, then used that claim to control the foundation accounts. A cold murmur moved through the donors. Vivian turned on him. "You signed parts of it." Samuel nodded, ashamed. "And tonight, I am saying that was my sin. But the lie was yours." Darius faced the board members. "Effective now, Vivian Whitfield is removed from all foundation authority, all trustee access, and every charitable account connected to my father's name. The legal review begins tonight." Vivian laughed, but sounded thin. "You cannot do that in a room full of guests." Darius's voice stayed low. "I just did it in front of witnesses." The board chair removed his glasses and looked at Vivian like he was seeing her without diamonds for the first time. "The board will comply." Status shifted like a door closing. The guards who had blocked Aaliyah stepped back. The guests who had filmed her shame lowered their phones. The women who had whispered "thief" stared to the floor. Vivian searched the hall for one loyal face and found only fear. Marlene's lips trembled. Mrs. Whitfield told me to put the watch in a bag. Vivian spun toward her. You weak fool. Darius raised one hand. Enough. Then he turned to Aaliyah. The room turned with him. The poor maid they had judged stood under the chandelier with rice still dried on one shoe and Ruth's medicine label peeling her pocket. Darius spoke clearly. Miss Carter did not steal from this family. She fed my father when this family left him hungry. The words landed in the hall like a public washing of shame. Aaliyah's eyes filled. Her hands covered her mouth. Ruth was not there to see it, but Aaliyah stood as if her mother's hand were on her shoulders. The little boy in the navy suit stepped forward. I am sorry they did not listen. Aaliyah bent slightly, tears on her face. You told the truth. That matters. Vivian tried one last time. Darius, think about your name. Darius looked at Ezekiel's bracelet on the table. E.W. Feed the last person first. Then he looked at Aaliyah. My name was saved by the woman you called Gutter Charity. Vivian's face collapsed. No guards grabbed her. No one shouted. The punishment was colder. The room simply moved away from her. The board chair asked security to escort her from the stage area while legal counsel secured the documents. Marlene followed, crying quietly, her clipboard hanging useless at her side. As Vivian passed Aaliyah, she whispered, You ruined everything. Aaliyah wiped her tears and stood straight. No, ma'am. I only fed the man you threw away. The hall went silent again, but this time the silence belonged to Aaliyah. Darius took the bracelet from the table and placed it carefully in Ezekiel's palm. Then he turned to Aaliyah with a question that felt heavier than money. Miss Carter, after what this house did to you, will you let us make one thing right? Darius's question stayed in the East Hall after Vivian was escorted away in silence. Miss Carter, after what this house did to you, will you let us make one thing right? Aaliyah Carter looked at him through tears. The same chandeliers that had watched her shame now shone over her silence. The same donors who had filmed her humiliation now stood with lowered eyes. The same guards who had blocked her path now stepped aside as if the floor belonged to her. She did not answer quickly. Poor people knew that gifts from rich houses could come with invisible chains. I do not want to be bought, she said. Darius nodded once. Then I will not offer money for silence. I will offer repair because it is owed. Ezekiel Whitfield held the leather bracelet in both hands. His thumb moved over the braille line again and again. Feed the last person first. Child, he said, turning his blind face toward Aaliyah, you fed me when I had no name. Aaliyah shook her head. I fed you because you were hungry. That is why it mattered, Ezekiel whispered. Samuel Hayes placed Ruth Carter's yellow caregiver note beside the bracelet. Her family kept a truth alive when powerful people buried it. The room listened differently now, not with curiosity, with shame. Darius turned to the board chair. Ruth Carter's medical care will be covered tonight through an independent patient fund, not through Vivian, not as charity for applause, not tied to Miss Carter's silence. Aaliyah's breath caught. My mother. She will be treated with dignity, Darius said. For the first time, her knees weakened from relief instead of fear. She held the edge of the table. The little boy in the navy suit stepped forward, holding the folded napkin from Aaliyah's tote. I'm sorry I got scared, he said. Aaliyah bent to his level. You still told the truth. His mother wiped her eyes. We all should have. Darius lifted the bracelet, then placed it back into Ezekiel's palm. This belongs to my father. Then he picked up the plain dinner plate from the video, the one marked by a stain of rice. He looked at the donors. And this belongs to the lesson this family forgot. He turned back to Aaliyah. Tonight, I am opening the night table project. Hot meals after dark. For workers leaving late shifts. For patients outside clinics. For people sleeping near gates that rich families pretend not to see. I want you to lead it. Paid. Protected. Publicly respected. Not because you need rescue. Because you understood the mission before we did. Aaliyah stared at him. A maid who had been called a thief was now being asked to lead what the mansion only pretended to believe. I have no degree for that, she whispered. Ezekiel smiled faintly. You have mercy. Some people spend fortunes and never learn it. Aaliyah looked toward the doorway where Vivian had disappeared. In her, Darius stayed calm. Lawyers will handle what was illegal. The board will handle what was stolen. My father and I will handle what was broken. She will not control this house, this foundation, or your mother's care again. No shouting, no revenge, just doors closing around a lie. Later that night, Ruth Carter entered Mercy South through the front entrance, not the back. Aaliyah walked beside her stretcher, holding her hand. Ruth opened her tired eyes and whispered, "You kept your name clean." Aaliyah kissed her fingers. "You taught me how." 1 week later, the first night table stood at the same back gate where rice had once been thrown on the ground. No red carpet, no champagne, just warm trays, folded chairs, clinic vouchers, and a sign written in bold letters with braille underneath. Feed the last person first. Ezekiel sat beside Darius, the bracelet on his wrist. Aaliyah wore a simple navy coat, not a maid uniform. Her hand still shook when the first homeless woman approached. "Do I have to pay?" the woman asked. Aaliyah smiled, and this time nobody laughed at her kindness. "No, ma'am. You just have to eat." The gate that once pushed her out now opened because of her. The phones that once recorded her shame now recorded her honor. And the poor woman who had been told she was nothing stood in the light, not rich with pride, but rich with dignity. Never look down on the poor. Never judge a person by wet shoes, a torn bag, or a quiet voice. Truth may be buried, but always finds a witness. Those who plant cruelty will one day harvest shame. And kindness may be stepped on, mocked, and thrown into the rain, but it never loses its value.